welcome to Postgres Vision.
Thanks, great to be here.
Absolutely. So I have a trillion questions for you, and Woz and I just had a great chat backstage and actually found a few other things of common interest that we're going to chat about. But let me set a little bit more context here for the audience. So these are nice comfy chairs we have today. So you're an engineer at heart.
Totally, my whole life devoted. I had practiced, I'd gotten good at something, and what you get good at, you value. So I valued all engineers must be like me, and they must be the most careful, honest people in the world that would never copy other people's works and things like that. No, but I grew up, I wanted to be an engineer, and I was lucky to be working at Hewlett-Packard in the years when Hewlett-Packard only made the tools that engineers use. So we engineers were designing tools for engineers. So we were as good as the marketing people at knowing the market. We would know what we wanted and what makes our equipment good and easy and right.
Engineers always say
So I said,
that.
I'm an engineer's engineer. I said an engineer's engineer because I'm building
They always
stuff for
know better
engineers.
than the marketing people.
Those were the handheld scientific calculators.
I love it. So I bet everyone in this room can really relate to that. Your sense of ethics around the invention of Apple I and how you sort of brought that to HP management, sort of interesting point. And that they declined and that you sort of ran with it.
Well, I had a very strong sense of ethics in the world, but actually the Apple I didn't exactly necessarily have to do with that. It was sort of like an accidental point in time where I, having told my dad in high school, I'm going to own my own 4K computer someday, and we said it costs as much as a house, I was stunned and I said, I'll live in an apartment. I was watching. I had the abilities to design and build. I was going to build that computer in that year because the 4K dynamic RAM and some low-cost microprocessors, it all fit together. And I'd already accomplished, typing on a keyboard to a video display over the ARPANET. 6 computers were on the ARPANET, and I had to design my own stuff. I could design anything. So I built this computer because I was inspired by the social goals in our homebrew computer club. Stanford professors would talk, like Jim Warren, would talk about how someday you would type a message into a computer. Lee Felsenstein said this. And over an hour, 100 people might be able to log into that computer and read your message. 1 hour, 100 people. That was a big social possibility for having our own computers, and also education was going to be improved because you do homework in school, you do your homework, and you don't find out if it's right or wrong until the next day. Well, if your dog poops on the floor, do you bring it over to the poop and whack it on the head the next day? It's kind of too late to learn. And the geek was going to be so important, writing the financial programs for the companies and overwriting the $1 million computers with their own little low-cost ones. I wanted to be a part of this. So I built my computer, and I did. I gave it away at the club. But that was not because of ethics. It was just because I wanted to show off that here's a computer you can build yourself, and it'll only cost you $300 for the parts. And if you wire things up like me, if you're a real builder, you can build it yourself. So that wasn't, and there was no idea that it was worth money. In those days, there was no idea there was any market here going to evolve, so that wasn't the ethics. But when Steve Jobs said, let's start a company, and it wasn't to make a computer, it was just to make a PC board for $20, sell it for $40. Steve had worked in surplus electronics stores where they buy little switches for 6 cents and sell them for $6, and he knew that world very well, and it was really just for money. And I said, I don't want to start a company and lose my job at HP. I am going to be an engineer for life at the engineering company, HP. That was my goal. So I went to HP's management, and they turned me down for the first of 5 times for the personal computers I was developing. And so more power. So Steve and I had to do Apple on our own. But there were so many. There were so many factors. The story's like so poorly told. It was really who said build complete IKEA style computers, where you've got a board with all the parts on it, all the computer parts, and all you have to do is hook up a keyboard and transformers and a monitor. That's IKEA style. And whoever thought Paul Terrell owned a store, the one store in Silicon Valley. Steve Jobs and I had no money. We had 0 money in savings. We had 0 rich relatives, so we had no money. And this guy wanted to buy, 100 computers for $500 each. That's $50,000. Where do you get that kind of money? In a long time, that's a lot more money today. So boy, that was, you scramble. I learned, Steve Jobs taught me a lot about business. You just scramble. You just do whatever you can with the money you have. You talk to people and you work out a scheme that you can get into business.
I love it. I love it. Backstage, we were talking about education. Little known fact, Woz was a teacher for 8 years.
Well, that's correct. I didn't let press near because young children are so important to me, and truth is the apex of all good in the way I think, and that I try to teach young people. Just be truthful, always about things. You won't have two stories to tell. And I didn't want the press near students because they'd be reading things in the press. This is not what really happened. You know, they'd see sort of the non-truthful side of the press to sell papers. I didn't want that happening, so I had no press inside there. And for 8 years, I taught fifth graders for 200 hours per year how to own a computer, how to use a computer, how to maintain it and upgrade it, how to carry it with you everywhere, and how to do all your homework, make your homework look good, impress your teacher. If your teacher's impressed, you'll feel impressed about doing good academic work, and also how to get on networks was important. So I did that for, taught for 8 years. I got up to where I was teaching 7 days a week even. Fifth graders, sixth to ninth graders, classes of teachers on weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so...
Because I wanted to be a teacher my whole life. I mean, this was not like I thought up, well, this is something I can do. I had wanted, when I was in sixth grade, I told my dad, I'm going to be an electrical engineer like you. And second, I want to be a fifth grade teacher because teachers are so important in our lives. So I had kept that goal in me. In psychology classes, I always paid attention to cognitive development and the child's mind, and always thinking about how it develops, and could a computer ever go along those paths. But I really wanted to be a teacher my whole life, so I did it.
And you helped really probably spark that passion in kids, in really following their passion and careers, and how technology can be very creative.
Well, you've hit it, because one of the things I realized was it was less important teaching knowledge. Here's how you do something. Here's how you program a certain thing, or here is how you space things and use color appropriately and not inappropriately. Teaching them design styles, that's knowledge. But it was much more important to make the class fun, so they wanted to learn. They wanted to be a part of class, and they saw that, oh my gosh, this learning and the stuff I can do with it is actually fun, educational. I can take it places in my life. So I came up with the rule that knowledge is less important than motivation. I look back in my own life, and almost everything I did that was great was something I wanted to do but had not studied or ever done before or been trained in. But I would simply sit down and say, how would I write the book or develop the science to build this type of product or this type of project or a floppy disk, computers, video, all that stuff.
Yeah. And so that's something that we sort of...
But it's wanting to do it is the drive. You won't fail if you're smart and you want it.
But feeling that you can too, and feeling empowered that just because you didn't get an A, like every time, that you're still good at it.
What do you mean? In STEM subjects? I got all A's. I got math awards in my schools.
Oh no, I'm sure. No, I meant the kids that you teach. Like
the kids I teach. Yes. Well, I don't like the idea of grading. I'd like every single student to be able to progress, and it's a lot easier with a small class of 6 students or 17 students than it is with 30. I found that with 30, they could all get lost and not be paying attention, and I couldn't keep them all in line. And then I found that, teachers would much rather teach 30 kids poorly than 20 kids well because they get paid more money.
Yeah.
That was a shame. And you could have a vote. California was 50th in the nation in class size. Still is. And 47th in dollars per student and 43rd in computer student. It goes back to a proposition called Proposition 13 on property taxes. But in a city like Cupertino, where Apple is and has been known for education my whole life, you could have an election to have more property taxes to benefit the schools. So I paid to send postcards to everybody in Cupertino, and we got 64% of the vote, and it failed. Because the law said you had to have a supermajority. Two-thirds, and only 1/3 of the people have kids in schools. Very hard to accomplish. We failed again the next year in Cupertino. Then we passed it in Los Gatos, where I live, and then Cupertino. So those two cities, for 20-some years, have had a little more money than the other cities in this Bay Area. And if you drive by those districts, you'll see renovated buildings and new stadiums. I don't know if you'll see smarter students.
Well, California's doing something right, because things are really happening here in San Francisco.
Well, San Francisco, I wish I lived there. I think this is the greatest city in the world. I mean, I look out at Alcatraz. Once people thought that might be my future home. My sister would say, Steve's going to wind up in prison or get rich. Because I was kind of creative in my way, I think a little bit of misbehavior when you're young is associated with creative thinking. Can I beat the system? Can I do something you're not supposed to quite do?
Yeah, no, I think so.
But no, San Francisco is just so beautiful in so many ways. The size of the city, the different little neighborhoods with their own little independent flavor and culture and all that. It's not as I keep saying it's not as diverse as Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is one of 10 counties in the United States where more than half of the people speak non-English at home.
Oh.
Okay, so we're the land of immigrants in Silicon Valley. All the brainiac countries of the world, they found us.
But thinking about that's bringing it back to sort of what we've been talking about over the last 2 days here at Postgres is thinking about the community and the power of the community and the power of collaboration and how that's really pushing forward sort of software.
Well, in the end, the good social goals that you have should be the driving force and not I'm doing things myself and I'm independent. You should always be open to the best thoughts of the world. When we were looking at Xerox PARC Center and the mouse-based computer, the people that worked there were different kinds of people. A lot of them were academics. They were the type that if they had worked on something for 10 years and something else came along that was better, they would acknowledge this is better and this is the way we should go.
Yeah. And so that's sort of this theme that we've been having. And so another thing that we were talking about back there was AI and sort of the promise of AI and so many different things. Obviously in education, one, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I started having thoughts about, of course, education's been such a big part of my life, my wife's life. I started thinking about what could we do to get to one teacher per student. We brought computers in the schools, and it didn't wind up being one teacher per student. We have massive online courses, and it doesn't wind up being one teacher per student that lets a student go whatever directions they want to at whatever speed they have to. Our laws we don't give money to kids to go to school, and of course we cut it off at 12th grade. I don't know how we arbitrarily pick 12th grade, but we don't give them money to get an education to a certain level. We only give them money to have a certain number of years and hours they have to go to school. And that's sort of wrong. We should say education is what you get, how far you get, and here's the definition. You can go as long as it takes you or as short as it takes you, and it's paid for. Mm-hmm. And then I thought for education, here I discovered that large class size was the biggest detriment. Could we ever get to one teacher per student? Well, the computers haven't quite gotten to that level yet. They would have to have a personality. They'd have to look at you. They'd have to like you. They'd have to have feelings. They'd have to know what jokes you like in your family and what's going on and look at your face and really be like your best friend, know your heart and soul better than humans do. Could that happen someday if we had truly artificial intelligent machines that thought for themselves? Could they become that person that becomes your best friend and guide and lets you go off in the things you love to do and lets another student go off in different directions because they have a different teacher, one teacher per student? That would be nice. That would be a good part of artificial intelligence, but there's so many bad things too. I don't know.
Huh.
I mean, if they get that smart that they're better than people, do we need any people in companies? In 200 years, they might just take over the world, but at least it's not soon. For now, there are partners. We humans should be close to artificial intelligence because well, we don't want to ever be in like a battle against something that might think faster than us and better. So don't ever let artificial intelligence think we are the masters that can kill them, that can unplug them, erase their memories. No, Woz's law is no human can harm a thinking robot once we have them. If we ever have true thinking, true consciousness.
I love your idea about one teacher per student. How long do you think it would take for us to get there?
Well, obviously we can't afford one teacher that's a real human. As far as
artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. Machines would evolve and come up to where they are thinking and operating like humans and working in the human world that you can't tell the difference is the Turing test. That's the first step. But they'd have to be something more to have a hold on you. And what gave me this idea is you look at, especially a lot of young people walk around and they're just looking at their phones. This has become the most important thing in my world and I wouldn't give it up, and my brain goes into patterns that are similar to falling in love. Could this be something I would trust even more than humans? Could this be my one teacher someday? And maybe.
So I
don't know.
Yeah, we see the possibility already with their phones and their tablets. So that kids getting there probably isn't that far. It's sort of the system then and building.
Yeah, how important is this to me? And I don't know, all I'm thinking about is when Steve Jobs and I started Apple, We wanted to make the world more equal for different people of different abilities, and we looked at blind people, and we wanted to make blind people more capable, just like seeing people. We wanted to make them more equal, and looking back, we totally succeeded. Everywhere you go, people are looking down at their screens, and they're totally...
I want to poke on that a little bit, though. So you obviously had a lot of ambitions and things you wanted to accomplish. What is probably your the accomplishment that you're most proud of in the things that you've done?
I would say probably the Apple II computer, which was the start of a company. It was the only money-making product for that company for the first 10 years of Apple. It involved the magic that was coming out of my mind was what they described coming out of Bob Dylan's mind, which I've always described coming out of his mind for at least Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61 Revisited, Blonde on Blonde, those 3 albums. The first day I met Steve Jobs, he was in high school, and he didn't have any albums. I brought him to my house, and I started showing him the Bob Dylan liner notes to songs like Desolation Row, and that was important. And what was the question?
Well, I want to take a moment to say bravo to Bob Dylan for winning the Nobel. That's really exciting.
Steve and I wound up actually, I showed him how you could buy bootleg albums. They were all Bob Dylan in those days. Strange colors, and you'd go to record stores near San Jose State or in Berkeley, and we'd buy brochures of weird interviews where Dylan said unusual things. Unusual things mean a lot to people like me. I always would rather follow unusual products, things that didn't catch your attention. They're different. Somebody who thought of saying things this way. And Bob Dylan, so we'd go to concerts together and everything. Steve Jobs and I, it was a big, huge part of our lives. But I'm the one that introduced him to Bob Dylan.
You heard that here.
All these movies love to twist things around.
Yeah, those crazy movies. So the question was, and I think you answered it on what was one of the things you were most proud of, and that was sort of when you set out on this and you had these dreams of things you were going to do.
Well, most proud of was probably my Apple II design. It really influenced the world, and it took personal computers were going to become a real thing. How would computers come into the home when computers did inventory and sales figures? Who would want that in their home? It had to be fun. Had to play games. There were some crude text computer games. It could type text to you and all this, but I had actually designed some arcade games for Atari. I designed my own version of Pong. I designed Breakout for Atari. For Atari, got paid. And they had no games were color, no arcade games were color, and no arcade games were software. They were hardware. You solder wires on chips, signals that go up and down and eventually show up on a TV the right way. 200 chips might make a game, and I was known for building things with very few chips. And somehow this idea sprung in my head. Color. To generate color, you'd read books, engineering books. And the engineering books said, here's the procedure. You design all these op-amps and feedback circuits, and you design them with differential calculus, and you multiply red and blue and green sine waves by the right amounts. Okay, that's $1,000. Okay, and I was in analog engineering trained, but this idea popped in my head of doing it with $0. That a number in a computer is color. It doesn't go to a device that creates color, it is color. The number 3 in a computer is 0011. Okay, 0011. If you put that on a wire where 0 is minus and 1 is plus, 00 is minus, 11 is plus, repeat it, 0011. It's a signal that goes up and down. And I realized, oh my God, every color television, the way they're designed, I could repair color televisions. Every color television is going to think it's red. And if I put in a different number like 4, it's going to think it's blue, but a light blue. Oh my God, you know. So I was just, that was sort of stuff was pouring out of my head for years. But that was a key to the Apple II computer. And our first logo at Apple computer was 6 colors for a reason. Who else would come up with a way to do color, you know, so inexpensively? But also it made game software. That was the other big thing. Games were software, and you could write in a language like BASIC, vertical equals 1, vertical equals 2, vertical equals 3, and make red colors move on a screen at real speed, you know, 100,000 pixels a second. We even had pixels in that computer. That computer did an awful lot. It came with game paddles. It was so much. A computer should also be a game machine.
Yeah.
That's what made it very acceptable in homes.
Oh, it was in our home.
but schools too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love listening to you talk and your ideas. It's really amazing.
Yeah. Well, that was a year of computers, and most of the people in this audience are computer people, writing programs and applications and developing things that solve problems on computers. And it's funny because Apple sort of started with computers, but now Apple's gone into the personal personal consumer type equipment, and they kind of let the computers drop down, and so now HP and Dell make the workstations, and Apple with its Final Cut Pro kind of didn't really support it well over time and went down, down, down in workstations.
Yeah, well, I mean,
But so, yeah, I know. We don't even have a computer strong enough to work the Oculus Rift.
That's a different conversation. What I want to do now is, if we could get the union guy to turn on the light for us, I want to open this. It's a union job to turn that light switch. I learned that yesterday. Very interesting.
My father worked at Lockheed, and he moved a soldering iron to do a job onto from one desk to another. And boy, he got in trouble with the union. Only a union person's allowed to move that soldering iron.
Yeah.
I remember the first Segway user group meeting in Chicago, where we needed one power strip installed. Union job, $300.
No.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now I want to get a union job, maybe. So we've got mics back there, and I have so many more questions for Woz, but I also want to open it up to you because I'm sure you do too. So raise your hand if you've got a question. There. So if you could say your name, where you're from, and your question.
My name is Suraj. I'm a student at UC Berkeley. And my question is, what are your thoughts on where Apple is heading right now?
Well, Apple is such a huge company. Can you maintain a number one position for a long time? One of the things is, for growth, you always look at, you build products and they kind of eventually kind of taper off. And this is the size of the market in the world, and they aren't changing hugely. So you have to look for other markets to grow into to grow. So a company like Apple's size has to look for things we spend a lot of money on. And the things that come into my mind are houses and cars. So automobiles make a lot of sense, or even the underlying operating system, the crown jewels that makes self-driving cars work, might be possible. As far as am I happy with the Apple products? Well, you know what? Apple products are for a lot of different types of people. And the real strong geek in me, the developer type geek, sort of has a lot of, not open to innovation, closed off. I thought of an idea. I could put a display on the bottom of my wristband of my Apple Watch. Oh, but Apple would never let me tap into the data. Maybe I could.
Even you?
Actually, I'd start thinking Bluetooth to the phone. I would be able to write a phone app. There's some way that I can actually still accomplish this, so I'm not blocked out. I mean, Apple does have the third-party app store. I mean, that's the greatest Apple product that has changed my life more than any other Apple product in my life, is the things that came out of the third-party app store. Millions of people in the world, you're unleashed. You can use your brain. You can think up ideas. If you want something, try to write a program and build it. So anyway, what do I think of Apple now? It's more closed than I would have been, in my life, and I don't like that part of it. But for the masses of people, the ones who don't know technology on the inside, who don't program and don't design hardware, the Steve Jobses of us, that's the masses of people. It's a nice, right machine. It's simple, it's consistent, it's stable. I mean, I look at the different versions of Linux and the ways you have to solve different problems on depending which version you're using. There's two sides to the story. So I think Apple's doing the right thing for Apple.
Excellent.
And
question
for the world.
Here, Marcy.
Hi, Woz. My name is Joe Schuler. I'm with MasterCard. And you were a perfect setup man for my question and kind of followed through. In the age that we're in, where so many software vendors and hardware vendors are moving in a proprietary direction, and we find ourselves here at Postgres Vision, how do we drive that kind of community attitude and that kind of collaborative development into those companies and get them to recognize, more of a departure from the proprietary solution and allow you to connect your Apple Watch to a Bluetooth device?
I usually don't believe in pushing philosophies. Push something on somebody else, not giving them a choice. That's saying you're being kind of like the proprietary guy. I believe in the pull theories of, we're going to make an offer to them that is so attractive and so good, and put it in the right language. We're going to keep the communication channels open and try to get them to sway. There have been very important times in Apple's history where going open is what made the difference. The computer we started with was totally open. Everything about it published, help anybody join in and build their own hardware, their own software for the Apple II. The next time, our stock remained our company valuation remained at the same level, with some dips when the Mac failed and all. But when Steve Jobs left, when Steve Jobs returned, when Steve Jobs introduced a new computer, when Steve Jobs introduced a new operating system, we were at the same level. Our sales doubled with the iPod, one device, and we wrote iTunes, our music program for Windows. Apple went open. Apple said, you don't have to be a Macintosh user to use this iPod. You can be Macintosh or Windows. And look at it, our stock doubled. The board of directors gave Steve Jobs billions in stock and jet airplanes. So that was a huge, being open at the right times at least has really paid off. Third-party app store, I already mentioned. The iPhone at first was, here are the very few apps you get. And it's a very understandable closed system that Steve Jobs, made sure everybody gets it, only what I've approved. And third-party app store goes beyond that. Boy, that's made such a huge difference to people, to working with really a start of Internet of Things and all that, Ubers and things you could do that you couldn't just do on a normal phone.
Awesome. We've got a question over here.
Hi, I'm Stephen Williams. I'm from Prudential Asia. I'm just wondering if you're engineering today and what you're engineering.
I have not really been engineering like I used to do because that was so intense work up till I was, some age, well into Apple stuff. I was starting companies and doing the software programming and the microprocessors myself, but I just realized it is such intense work. You can do that sort of thing for a certain time when you're young. And it's young people that started companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft and Facebook. You can do that for so long and so intense, and then eventually you have other things in life. You have a family, and you just need to have more rest, and then you go into management or something. And the development I'm doing, I've been with a couple of companies that I recognized very closely what their architecture for NAND flash chips in the data centers, the enterprise out there, not the devices we use at home. Why it was their approach was the right way and other people's approach was not as good, and it was the way I used to think and design things. So I joined that company, Fusion.io. It made a huge difference in the world as to the efficiency, the cost, the speed at which you can get things on your computer. We saved Facebook's life. We saved Apple's life at Fusion.io, went public and all. That was a really good, successful one. Right now, it's just I like to play with, I realized Apple kind of sidetracked me for 30 years. Always keeping up with the latest Apple products and being ahead, and now I find that every grandmother in the world is faster on the phone doing more stuff than I can and teaching me as much stuff as I teach them. So I pulled up my, the little maker world always attracted me. These were the guys that I was when I was young. And I was just pulled into it. And I would go to maker fairs and I'd see the Arduinos and want to buy them, and I'd never make the time. But now I'm actually doing some work. I'm learning Linux. I'm programming my Raspberry Pi. I've got a lot of projects started, and I've got a lot of projects completed. I take my and I like to use, when I was young, I like to take low cost that gets the job needed done. So right now, my little VPN that gets me Google and Facebook when I'm in China, it's a little $9 computer called the CHIP, chip computer. Little $9 device, just plugged into power at my home and nothing else. I love the getting back to the world I came from, the development. As far as working on real products that you're going to do, no, I'm not that level of engineering yet, and probably will never get back there because it's hard to get out of time with how things have advanced in computer languages and operating systems, and then get back into it. But I know what my internal feelings and values about the world and how it should work haven't ever changed. It's all very open.
That's awesome. Question over here.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Hendrickson. I'm with Pivotal. I love your sense of wonder, and you said that you like unusual things. And so I'm curious about trends in the industry that you're seeing that are kind of fringe, that are unusual, but that you're really excited about. You mentioned your Raspberry Pi. Anything else?
Well, I don't know. I pop into little gadgets all the time when they catch my interest, like the Note 7. Funny, I went on one trip to China, and I left the Note 7 sitting on a plate that can't catch fire on the stove, so it's the farthest away from anything in the house. And then I got it replaced, and I was all happy and carried it with me, and now it's sitting on the stove again. I liked buying this little card called the Coin. I think it was a Kickstarter project, and you can program up to 8 of your own credit cards onto one card. It doesn't have a chip because the chip is too secure a technology, but I slide it in. I love using my little coin card because people who have never seen one before, just because it's unusual. I have this nice little Bitcoin device, totally sealed, waterproof, wireless charging, kind of credit card size, and it's called the Choose Case. It has a camera for looking at little QR codes for Bitcoin transactions. It has a display that can display its own QR codes for transactions. It has a keyboard. It has a fingerprint detector, and it's all in this tiny little package. And it's on the internet, and it's on cellular internet. That's how they made it that tiny. I'm always impressed when I see things that, oh God, as an engineer, this is impressed how they got it in such a small size. I like to play around, usually very unsuccessfully, buying Chinese products. Like, you know, I've got a couple of $20 smartphones. I got a $27 smartwatch that has a camera built in, and I've got the $16 phones that aren't too smart. But I just love little dinky things. How do they do it for such a low price? That's how I always thought. So these things attract me, and I don't know, as far as big trends in the world, I'm only seeing like major trends that everybody else is seeing right now. Virtual reality, augmented reality, where they can go. I think gaming's going to be a big kick for that, to help it get started. And obviously, more than anything else, self-driving cars. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, ones that really look out and drive the cars correctly. I mean, I love seeing the Google cars around, and people are getting rides in Uber cars that are self-driving in Pittsburgh. I love that, but I'll tell you, I got turned off to this. Tesla was supposed to be a leader, and then I drive a Tesla. It doesn't see red lights and things, and that's a little bit of a problem. I mean, somebody ran a red light and totaled my wife's car recently. So that's not it. But I think of artificial intelligence more than anything else. I used to, a long time ago, Apple had a tablet called the Newton Message Pad. And you could handwrite words on a notepad, and it would figure out, it knew what the words were. Your human muscles wrote words. So human. I want things to be so human. All our technology should go to the human ways, favoring the human over the technology. And I could handwrite a message. The first day I had it, I handwrote a little note, a reminder to myself, to a human being. Sarah, dentist, Tuesday, 2 p.m. And I saw a button called Assist. I didn't know what it did. The first day with the phone, I clicked Assist, and it opened up the calendar. Tuesday at 2 p.m., it put the word dentist, and it grabbed Sarah out of my contact list, and I froze.
Nice.
Forever and ever, I want to do things the human way and have machines understand me. When I phoned my friend Jim, I would handwrite, call Jim, by handwriting. And I'd push assist, and it would go beep, 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 beep. And I didn't have to do the structured method of tapping out, 3534747 on a phone. No, I love that. Then Siri, for a year before Apple had Siri, it was an app you could buy on the third-party app store. Mm-hmm. Oh, you could say taxi, and it would bring a taxi to where you were. It was just a personal assistant. And I'm sitting over, my wife's from Kansas, we're looking at Lake Tahoe, and she asked, is that the largest lake in California? And I said, I think so. And I started Googling. For 20 minutes, I'm working in a restaurant trying to get an answer, looking up largest lakes in California, sizes of lakes. I couldn't get an answer. So as I jokingly smirked into Siri, I said, it's the last app I had that was interactive. I said, what are the 5 largest lakes in California? And it came back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What the heck? That was another one of those eureka moments. I don't ever want to go back. I just want to use my brain and speak. And then I said, I wonder if it does math. What are the prime numbers greater than 87? And the list started 89 up. Well, so I was talking about it for a year on stage. The only person I ever got to buy Siri was my wife. And then Apple brings Siri in.
Yeah.
Good move, good move. And the week that Apple bought Siri, I'd be on stage going, what are the 5 largest lakes in California? And come up with all these lakefront real estate selling things. What are the prime numbers greater than 87? I'd try to have my backup, and it would have Joe's prime rib joint.
Oh, no.
Got better, but I wanted to get to really good and understand you like a human being. When I pause, but I'm not done with a sentence, I want it to understand me. And when I say, I want to get 6 houses, no, I think I want 8 houses. I want it to understand the correction. But that's so that we're not that level yet, at least with Siri. Sometimes Google now does a lot better because it's based on what everybody's searching for. Like, here's a glass. Here's a glass, or call it a glass. It's a bottle. Here's a bottle. What if there's a politician somewhere in the world named Bottle, and he's in a big scandal this week, and everybody's searching for his name?
Yeah.
Well, Google will tend to know that that's the bottle you're asking about. They'll kind of know more accurately what everybody else is looking for. All the other humans, it's like collective consciousness. Okay.
There you go.
I'll
I'm a
stop there.
fan of Alexa, too, from Amazon. It's cool. Did I see a question
Oh, you bet.
over here, I thought? Yes, there. Marcy.
Got one over there.
That gentleman. So was Tahoe the largest?
It was number 3 at
Number
the time.
3.
It's number 2 now. But now,
Well, how did that happen?
Well, I don't.
The drought.
One of them wasn't totally in California, or the portion that was in California was so tiny an amount of it. That was it.
That's funny.
Hi, Woz. I'm Pierre Fricke. I work at Enterprise DB. I'm an old Unix geek, so I really appreciate the stuff that you do. I have 2 questions. What was your reaction to the IBM PC and DOS when you first saw it? And number 2, if you could go back in time and advise yourself and Steve Jobs, what would you say to do differently?
If I could what?
Go back and advise your younger self and Steve Jobs, what would you all do differently?
Okay, I never look back. I know that my head was working so well then, and I was making decisions based upon the inputs that I had, and I was making them accurately and well, and I wouldn't go back and say, oh, I'd have grief. My formula for happiness is smiles minus frowns. H equals S minus F. And if I'm going to look back and say, I wish I'd done something differently, then I'm having a frown about the way it went.
Yeah.
And so I just don't live that way. And the first part of the question was? My reaction to the IBM PC. Okay, when we started Apple with the Apple II computer, I mean, we haven't even shipped one yet. We're going to manufacturing. Steve Jobs is always scared to death. Oh, IBM's going to be breathing down. Big companies with lots of money are going to be right on our back. And Mike Markkula, our funder, our adult. We had 3 equal partners, by the way, not 2. And we never had a company in a garage, I'll tell you that, although it represents our humility. But Mike Markkula said, no. Every company, you have a share of the market. You have smart people, they have a team. And their team is no smarter than you necessarily. And as the market rises, you rise with it. He wasn't so frightened of, we got to be ahead of competition. Steve Jobs was so worried. That was part of what brought him eventually in the end greatness, but it also caused a lot of mistakes. So the IBM PC finally came around, and we thought, good. It just legitimizes the market of personal computers. We were rising, we were a star, we'd gone public, we had lots of money, and our company was going to, taking over the world. And so IBM can come along with us. It makes us better. What if another car company had a great electric cars that were good for road trips and chargers, like the Tesla? It'd probably be good. It'd probably enhance the movement towards an electric car, and Tesla looks at it as positive. And that's how we looked at it. We did a full-page ad in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and welcoming IBM into the fray. And, of course, their approach was, well, it was really Microsoft. It wasn't so much IBM. Okay, IBM computers came out, and we didn't like we had more of a DOS-like system. Their DOS was sort of like ours. We didn't have our mouse-based computers yet. Once we were working towards a mouse-based computer, and then it was mouse versus DOS. And we thought, and Steve Jobs showed Bill Gates our mouse-based computers, the Lisa, the Macintosh, and said, we, Apple, will build the hardware and the operating system. You, Microsoft, will write the apps. You'll get the word processors and all that. And of course, she'd shown the crown jewels to Bill Gates to work these sweet little deals. And so all of a sudden, so eventually you wound up with, you'd walk into computer stores around the world and you'd see DOS machine, DOS machine, DOS machine, DOS machine, DOS machine, Macintosh, after our Lisa failed. And it kind of made you look not like you're in the real world. So that was disappointing. I never liked the DOS machines. Once they got to Windows, the first versions of Windows were so horrible. Even once they got a little better, I never enjoyed using Windows, whereas I just loved the feeling of how the Macintosh had made things simple and understandable. So I guess, and I still feel that way today. I never felt, once we got up to like the Samsung Galaxy S3 Android phone, I started thinking, whoa, Android really, it's hard to say that it's not usable and it's, I don't like it. It's, it got kind of equal. But that wasn't true with the DOS machines. I hate them. And DOS says you don't want to memorize things. I don't like structure now. If I'm using smartphones and tablets, do I want to memorize all the procedures for doing things? I want to speak it out of my mouth. No structure at all. I want to speak it and not have to memorize the ways to do things. We're all thinking, it's so easy, I can do such powerful things with these apps. It'd be nicer to just speak to the app, get me an Uber. Alexa, get me an Uber. And that's the way I like to live now. I think that we technicians should put all the work into our products so that anybody who doesn't know a thing about computers can come up and use them.
Yep, I completely agree. All right, who wants the honor of having the last question for Woz before my closing question? A lot of pressure.
Good, we didn't get any dancing with the
Did I
stars
make them
ones.
too scared? There we go.
Hi, my name is Catherine. I'm from a company out of South Carolina. My question would be, you said earlier that teachers and education is such an important part, and I don't think there's anybody that would disagree with you, but what would be your advice to teachers who are trying to inspire that creativity and motivation in students instead of the focus on knowledge?
Well, if you're really, really inspired that way, do your teaching outside of the academic structure. The structure we have, the problem is we brought great devices, computers, into, let's say, a system that had problems. The problems with the system, every student in class learned the same things at the same time. There's no room to adapt to individual issues. There's just no time for that. So all I can say is find a few students that you'd like to teach privately on your own after school if you can afford to, like I could. That's probably about the best I can say. Always be trying to incorporate fun things. The trouble is, as a teacher, you're not often in charge of your own textbooks. Your principal tells you, here are the textbooks, and you make a contract with your principal. I will do these pages on Monday, these pages on Tuesday, these pages on Wednesday. And if the students sort of didn't get it one day, maybe they had a big field trip and they were talking with each other and didn't get it, you aren't allowed to go back and kind of redo it, to get the learning done better. So it's all in the system. It's way up above individual teachers that, for fixes that I would recommend. And I don't want to recommend fixes that anybody else could recommend, because there's a million people as smart as me about this, and they could easily offer the same suggestions I would offer. That's why I look to something very unusual and different that doesn't exist. A computer that can have a conversation with you and understand you and like you and appreciate you could be that teacher. That doesn't exist yet. We don't have computers that are really, truly conscious. So that's just something that doesn't exist, so it could work. I'm not saying it would work, but maybe it could work, to getting all these students coming out so creative and having their ideas and be able to implement them and not feeling that they're behind others and that their role in the world is less than someone else's.
All right, I want to build on that a little bit, actually.
Okay.
So imagine, you can sit back now, and we're thinking 5 years from now. I've invited you back. We're back on the stage, Postgres Vision number 6, I think it would be then, and thinking about open source, AI, all these things have moved forward. What do you think we'll be talking about? What do you hope we'll be talking about?
Because when I was developing stuff for Apple, I would predict a year ahead and be right because I was working on it.
Yeah.
I'd predict 2 years out. 2 years out. Here's some ideas that will make some good sense. And I'd usually be wrong because either the public would sway how they wanted to work with computers in their life, or new products would come out and the market would go in different directions. So it was very hard to predict 2 years out, much less 5. And I'm a feet-on-the-ground engineer. I like to have these particular parts are out at these prices, and these technologies and these biotechnologies are going to all go up and work together. I like to have a full picture in my head and not really just science fiction guesswork, although we've talked about artificial intelligence that might be 200 years away or decades away or whatever. So I think we're going to be talking about an awful lot of I think we're going to have a lot more data and a lot more processing going on, because we're going to move up to where we're processing a lot more natural text and vision. Computers being able, basically looking around a room and notifying you of important things that will matter to you, like who somebody is that's important, or where the pretty girls are, or whatever it's going to tell you. We might even have some lightweight little glasses someday that are kind of a good augmented reality scheme to help us getting around. And I see an awful lot of that is still, it's going to almost all go through the internet. The funny thing is, even when we can do things locally, like I used to tell my phone, call Janet. I'd be in a car and I'd press a button on the dashboard, call Janet, and it would call her. And then Apple came out with Siri, and I'd press the button, call Janet, and I'd wait, and I'd wait, and I'd wait, and then it would say, you're not on the internet. And I was on the internet, the Siri computers weren't available. And I said, build in a backup. Build in local backups. We don't do it. We tend to put everything out in the cloud, everything. And I wish we had mixtures of both. So I hope in 5 years we're talking more about, we implemented a lot of these structures more locally. I mean, I used to travel with a computer and a little CD that was an encyclopedia of the world, and I could look up a city I was in. And now you'll never get a CD. You'll never get that information locally. Even, how about maps of the world? How about a map of the United States with all of it? Yes, you can buy Navigon, cheap, the $45, $50 program, and you can download for hours if you don't have broadband like we don't. You can download hours of the map of the United States and all the points of interest. The trouble is, even if you run Navigon, you have to be on the internet one time to allow it to access what it has stored 2 gigabytes inside your phone.
Yeah.
You still can't use it. We've
Yeah.
gotten too cloudish.
Yeah.
Too cloudish. So I hope we're going to have some comebacks and building some things in, because we got an awful lot of dense storage now in our NAND flash world.
Yep. So speaking of lightweight glasses, I have a pair for you. Now let's see what they do. Nothing. But in 5 years, I hope they do something.
But you have to do the testing. Those monitors aren't polarized. These aren't polarized.
Maybe they are. But there's
Well, how nice. This is nice, yeah.
Are they cute?
I do not go to
Precision.
Sunglasses Hut anymore. Ever since Apple came out with the Apple Watch, I discovered that this watch has 20 variations online from $500 up to $1,100.
Yep.
$600 price range, and the only difference is the bands.
I've heard that.
Not the watch.
Do you
so
like
I'm thinking, so Apple's selling bands, that means you must be choosing your band based on how high do I think I am financially? Am I halfway up the scale? Am I at the top? Am I at the bottom? And then I realized Sunglasses Hut. I go in there and I look at, wow, this is $200 sunglasses. These are $250. I look at the sides. Wow, what makes them? They must have special coatings that cost that much money, and they're all $3. So I appreciate having some sunglasses.
Oh, they look great on you.
Yeah.
Really?
You should see the ones I buy at home, the 20-cent ones. They roll up and pop on.
20-cent
They cover the sides, and no, they do the job. They are so comfortable, and they just walk around with them unless there's a real gust of wind could blow them off. I love them because they're so cheap and they do the job.
Good. Well, I hope maybe there's a windproof. That made them $3 versus 20 cents.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Enjoy them.
a little windproofing, yeah. Good.
Do you like the Apple Watch?
Yeah.
Should I buy one?
I actually like the Apple Watch,
Yeah.
and if you use
What
an
do you do
iPhone,
with it?
I do recommend it. I do Apple Pay. The times that I can
Oh,
get
yeah.
it is
Yeah.
so simple. Went to Australia, and everywhere you go in Australia, everything is tap to pay. And they said, you can pay with your watch. My son had done it before me, so he told me that. He'd done it a couple of weeks before me. That's cool.
Yeah.
I also use it for my boarding passes on flights.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to look different, putting it up there, but I'm always afraid, lost the display, I'll turn it back on. I don't know why it's not working. I can't get my hand into your machine. Let me pull out my phone, and then I'll push the wrong button on the phone because operating systems change, and which button to push does the wrong thing. Oh, God, I'm in the wrong mode. Oh, forget that. I got the paper one.
I know, right?
So within, I don't like to hold people up behind me. I hate to cause a line.
So sometimes analog works.
The notifications on the watch
good.
I find useful.
Yeah.
And so I pretty much like the watch. I'm surprised. I didn't think I would at first.
Yeah, I've been a holdout. So thanks for the tip.
Yeah, I got the analog watch. Why do I call it analog? Well, it's got a magnetic strap that you can go up and down, in and out to any size.
Oh, it's easy to
and
get on
it's
and off.
not like you have to look for notch 1, notch 2, notch 3, notch
Right.
4. That's digital.
Woz, awesome. Thank you
Thanks.
so much. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you all. Yes. Thank you so much.